5-7. Yeah, 5-7. Time ready? Okay. Have you ever felt so consumed by something, so focused, and had just about tunnel vision? Okay, where you block out everything else, maybe even miss work, skip a family gathering, and you're just so hooked on the TV. Well, this actually happened last week for me, and the evolution here of the World Cup. So, if you don't know, which I hope most of you do, the World Cup to me is the most elegant, magnificent, all-nations collaboration of soccer. In my opinion, the world's best sport and the most popular. Maybe your team is representing their nation, US is in it, but overall I've been watching the World Cup for many years. I've played soccer all my life, and I can say that the World Cup is, in my mind again, the #1 spectacle there is. It takes priority over the NBA Finals, the NHL, and just about every other sport out there. Again, it's all nations. The host this year is Brazil. And actually, show of hands, anyone watching the World Cup soccer? Okay, very good, very good. I had the luxury to play in the States. I played AYSO here for many years. I played club ball and actually went to Europe for about 6 months and played a little bit over in France and also in England for a few short tournaments. But again, the World Cup is very, very different. It originated back in the 1930s. However, soccer goes way back to the Chinese about 2,000 years ago. And then the Greeks and the Romans really popularized soccer, also known as football, to most people around the world, and the field known as pitch. Of course, we call it field here in the States. The World Cup is every 4 years. Of course, Brazil's being the host, and they actually won it about 5 times. Whereas Germany won, I think, 3, and Italy won about 4. The U.S. hasn't won quite yet, but I'm hoping for a decent appearance here in the World Cup this year. So anyway, it was interesting because I work for a corporation. We have a number of employees, but everyone chimed into the TV. People were going outside, and everyone was talking about the World Cup, this spectacle that comes every 4 years. The interesting thing is that there's some countries that certainly have more of a following when it comes to soccer and more of a demand for their team to do well. It's interesting because the African nations are represented, but they're not really having that much publicity. And I follow soccer, of course. We have Cameroon, we have the Ivory Coast, we have Nigeria, and Algeria, and then one more team, Ghana, of course, in our bracket, and the U.S. along with Portugal and also Germany. So a very, very tough bracket. But what you'll find in Africa is the number one most impoverished nation, and it's very, very different than European nations and also South America, and also here in the States. Again, going back to a lack of organization. In Africa, it's very interesting because they actually, or most people and most villages, do not have a soccer ball. Now, I haven't been to Africa or specific East African nations or in South Africa where the unemployment rate's very high, they don't have much money, there's a variety of different health concerns, but for the most part, they have fun, they play soccer, and they actually play soccer with plastic bags mixed with rubber bands or yarn over the top. And so, again, you don't have to go there. If you do, you may see this, and it's also on YouTube as well. And so I think it kind of comes back to us here in the States and wherever you're at, that we really have to go ahead and be grateful because these kids with a smile on their face from African nations, mainly East Africa, don't really have much. And you can actually feel it. It's somewhat decent. I made it here in the car today, but on the way over here. Typically what you'll find is about 15 to 20 plastic bags, all kind of balled up. Again, with rope or yarn over the top, and you can kick it around. They play, they have a good time. Now the interesting thing is too, they can actually play with a water bottle. And again, you'll see this on YouTube videos. Maybe if you've been to Africa, you'll see people in villages knocking a plastic bottle around. And they also go ahead and ball up clothing. So just very, very different than organized soccer here. Plus, they play in dirt fields. And mind you, the temperature over in most African nations will exceed 100 degrees. So imagine little kids playing soccer in the dirt without shoes. And they're having a good time. So quite the disparity between the US and maybe other nations versus East Africa and South African countries overall. So with that in mind, two things. Number one is pay special attention to the African teams. Again, Cameroon, the Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Algeria, and of course Ghana. Not saying you have to be their #1 fan, but pay attention to them and their passion they have here in the World Cup. And then number two, if you happen to see people playing soccer nearby in a park, take time and really analyze what they're doing and kind of reflect upon everything I just talked about, especially with the plastic and this bottle, in that we have a ball, we have a field here, and we have organized soccer. So think about that and enjoy.